Hi, welcome to today's video and thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be talking about this subject, investing misinformation. Today I'm going to be talking about 8 different things that are very, very misleading, or not so much misleading, but misinformation. Some of the things that people really have a misunderstanding about what they really mean, and sometimes it can cause you trouble. So today I'm going to show you 8 different things, and so I hope you enjoy today's video. Put your comments below. And let's get into number 1. It's not the number 1 or the biggest one, just in order from 1 to 8. How's that, okay? All right, so the first one is balanced funds are not balanced. This is a big misunderstanding. When you think of balance, you might think of 50-50, right? So if you think of an equilibrium or a teeter-totter, and so balance would mean that the thing is equal on both sides. A balanced fund is not like that at all. A balanced fund can be easily 60% equity to maybe 75% equity. So you might see a balanced fund will be 60% equity, 40% fixed income. That is very, very, very common in the industry in terms of mutual funds and ETFs and segregated funds. So I'm going to show you an example of a balanced fund so you understand that. So here's a risk tolerance, and when you were filling in, like starting an account, RRSP, TFSAs, they would have asked you to complete a number of questions, and that was to get your risk tolerance. And then at the very end of that, it came up with a recommendation in terms of what kind of risk profile that you're in, and then they built your portfolio around that risk profile. So you can see in the middle on the left-hand side, balanced investor. And the darker blue, where it says 45%, that's your fixed income, and everything else is equity. So you can see there's an actual risk tolerance result or outcome when you do your own, when you're answering those questions. And so a balanced investor it's not necessarily 40% or 50-50. So when you're doing investing and you think that you have sort of like middle of the road, this is the industry's example of middle of the road investing. And what it could mean is that you have more equities than you had intended. So bear in mind when you're picking funds or your advisor's picking funds, just don't say, what is that fund or what's the return profile. Dig into how much equity and where the equity is. Is it mostly Canada? Is it North America? Is it in Europe? Is it something that you need to be aware of in terms of also the sector positions as well? So technology, consumer discretionary spending, energy. These are the things that you have to pay attention when you're choosing a fund. So that's one of the biggest ones that I see out there. People just seem to think that it's middle of the road. That's the industry thinking that it's middle of the road, and they use balanced to make you feel that way. So be careful with that one. Okay, global funds are not global. This is true. I'm going to show you 3 examples. Global funds are actually mostly U.S. equity, anywhere from 40 to 75%. So when you pick a fund and it says global fund, I'll show you 3 funds here, and he says global equity, U.S. equity, for instance, they're mostly going to be U.S. And what your intention was that you wanted to have global, meaning around the world. That's not what a global fund is. So if you want something that is truly global, then what you want is something that says international in the name. Then you're going to get global. It's kind of misleading, right? So let's look at the first one. And I'm not favoring one company or other, just it showed up nice on the page, so I thought let's use it. CIBC Global Equity Fund, look at the bottom right hand side, it says investment mix, United States 62.6%. That is not around the world, right? That's mostly US equity. So when you're building your portfolio and you're putting in US equity fund, Canadian funds, and then you choose a global equity thinking you're being more diversification around the world, you're not. You just added another 60% equity, U.S. equity to your portfolio mix. Here's an RBC fund. Again, bottom right-hand side, 62% United States. So it's same thing, global equity fund. Here's another fund, but this one says international equity, and look at the bottom right-hand side. It doesn't say the total, I don't think, but it says foreign equity, 100%. And you can see the companies there are countries, 18% in Japan, Germany 15.5%, United Kingdom 12%. So you start seeing that is actually an international equity fund. So when you build your portfolio, don't rely just on the name. Dig into the actual fund itself and figure out where is this fund from a geographical position, where are they actually investing, and then you'll know for sure. But a quick A quick way to get at it is just go international funds, and you should be able to see something like this. Okay, more positions doesn't lower your risk. When I say positions, if you're putting together a stock portfolio or a mutual fund, ETF, segregated fund, doesn't matter. If you are thinking you're choosing many more positions, it doesn't lower your risk, actually. It doesn't help your rate of return. It actually hurts you. So you see here the optimal diversity for a portfolio is to have 15 to 20 positions. So that's the first step. And then you can see if you add more positions, so I just exaggerated here going from 20 to 1,000 positions, you only reduce your risk by 0.8%. The first 20 positions that you had actually reduced your risk by 29%. So it's very important not to have too many positions because it doesn't really help you at all. And what you're looking for is 20, let's say 15 to 20, uncorrelated positions. So one stock that is very different from another stock, or one mutual fund that is very different from another mutual fund. So they're not correlated, meaning they don't share the same kind of company. So if you're in a mutual fund or a segregated fund or an ETF, and you pick a Canadian equity fund, and then you pick a Canadian dividend fund, and then you pick another North American fund. So that North American fund is going to have Canada content in it. The dividend fund is going to have Canada content, and the Canadian equity is going to have Canada content. So it's important to figure out how much correlation you have. So here is Ray Dalio. If you don't know Ray Dalio, Google him. He's he's worth about 20 billion, and he is one of the most successful hedge fund managers in the world. He's written a couple books, and he came up with the all-weather portfolio. So it's worth paying attention. So you see he's recommending 30% stock, 55% fixed income, and 15% commodities. And you can see, obviously, he's picking everything U.S. because he's a U.S. citizen. But if you just think of it from a point of view of composition, that red is stock. He's saying 30% of that's going to be in large U.S. cap stock, and then you've got 40%. I'm going to go around the clock, clockwise. 40% U.S. long-term bonds, 15% medium-term bonds, and then a broadly diversified set of fixed income, of commodities, and then gold by itself. If you look at this is remarkable. So when they take this portfolio and they retract the stock market all the way back 1871 to 2025, 150 years, it averaged 6.13%. The last 30 years, 7.46. 1 year, 10%. So if you're thinking about trying to invest into something that is really going to minimize the downsides, this type of allocation works. Many of you, as you enter into retirement, you're wondering about how much equity you should have in your portfolio and how much fixed income. Here you go. Here's a great template to build your portfolio. Of course, talk to an advisor, but this is a really good information for you. Okay, retirement planning is more than RRSPs. I have a question for you. When you make your contribution to an RRSP, is it based off of how much money you're going to get back when you file your tax return? Because many people do that. Many people put the same amount of money in, or they're just thinking about how much am I going to get back when I get my return. What you ought to be doing is you get a plan done, a financial plan, retirement plan. We covered the difference, or I'm going to cover the difference between the two. And the plan tells you how much money you should have when you go to retire, or whatever goal you're saving for, how much money you should have at the end when it's time to use that money. And then when you reverse engineer that, it tells you how much money you should be investing every year. That's the way you ought to invest, not the other way around where you're just thinking about what you're going to get back. So I guess the story here is get a financial plan done. You'd be deeply, deeply happy you did, because you will not underfund your retirement as a result. Okay, money is more important than time. And so how you spend your time in retirement is probably more important than the amount of money you have. Of course, if you don't have enough money, it's difficult for you to feel like you have enough to enjoy your retirement. But essentially, it's really important that you nail down what you want to do in retirement, how you're going to spend your time, something that's going to be engaging, keep your mind active, have a social network. And there's one thing that I wrote it down, I'll just read it to you. It says, this is something I was just thinking of, is time is the one thing you don't have more of. the clock is ticking, and the seconds and the minutes, the years are just seem to go by so effortlessly. And it's the one thing we just don't have more time. So get at retirement, really enjoy it, savor every day that you've got. And after all, you worked so hard to get there and saved and sacrificed. This is your time, so go out and enjoy it. Okay, a retirement plan is different than a financial plan. Some people think there's a difference. And there might be a slight difference. The way that I attribute it, because both of them give you answers about how much money to save, what kind of rate of return, what your tax rates might be. They both do the same thing. A financial plan, in my mind, addresses the accumulation phase of your life. So if you're in your, let's say you're 30, for instance, and you're thinking about how much money do I need to put away for a certain period of time to be able to have enough money at the end of my life, that is a financial plan. It's not just about time value of money, because you're also making an account for expenses, how much you're going to spend in retirement, where you're going to be doing those spendings, so travel, renovating, buying a house. A financial plan puts all of those things in there so you can have not just the amount that you need at the end, but the timing of when you're going to be making big purchases and how that might put a lot of pressure on your own finances. So when you get a financial plan, very often I'm saying, look, this year you're doing this and this with your kids because of university or whatever, and you were planning on replacing the roof, or the timing was you were going to get another car. We should either shift that ahead or forward or backwards, or start a saving strategy all by itself so it's not one big lump sum. So those things in terms of timing of events are very helpful for a financial plan. A retirement plan obviously addresses what is your need and your goals for retirement. And it also includes your estate plan. So really about optimizing CPP and old age security, income splitting with your spouse if you have one, how to do an RRSP or RIF meltdown, maximizing your TFSA contributions. You might do a downsize event and sell a house, or maybe you have some rental properties or a cottage and you're going to when to you sell those and how much capital gains you might experience. A retirement plan addresses all those things. So there's a slight difference between a financial plan and a retirement plan, but they should all have the same information. It's just how I guess the verbiage is how you ever want to describe it. Okay, all financial advisors are equal. That's just not true. Think of it, all doctors are not the same. You can get doctors are specialists, advisors can be specialists, and because if you're not working in one area, if you're working in one area every day, that's specializing, and then you kind of lose touch with other areas, and that just may not get you excited. So for instance, let's say an advisor was working just trading stocks. Their job is not caring at all about where you're going to spend your money or where you're going to live in retirement. Their job is to multiply the check that you pass to them, right? So that don't be surprised if they're not great at planning, because that's not their job. Some advisors specialize in working with a certain type of client. Maybe it's just business owners, or they're in the family market where they're used to working with budgets with families and RESP deposits. So you have to figure out who you are, what are your needs, and what is that advisor doing. And some advisors just do planning and they don't invest money. They give that, refer that out, or they might be just insurance advisors. So what you need to do here is interview the advisor, just as though you would interview like somebody come in your home to do some work, and you say, tell me some of the things you've done before. This is what you want to do. You want to interview the advisor and find out qualifications, any designations that they have. Not that it means that they're going to be proficient or good at their job, because some people just go and get a designation, but they're not that great. So don't be fooled by a designation. But what's their average age of their client, the average investment size that they manage, or how much money they manage? What does their day look like? You can ask them those kind of questions in terms of what kind of activity they're doing. I also like what's the average age of your client? Because if you have an advisor that's working with people that are 65 and over, then they're working with a lot of fixed income portfolio, maybe a little bit of equity. They're used to doing withdrawals for clients and setting up RIF accounts and lira to lift, that kind of thing. But if you're working with somebody who is in the family market setting up RRSPs for their kids and working on very tight budgets, big debts, right? They may not be familiar with a lot of how to help retirees. So it's very important you figure out what that advisor specializes in first before you actually agree to work with them. Okay. We're almost done. Thanks for sticking around. How am I doing so far, by the way? Put your comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button as well. The shift from saving to spending can be difficult. Probably one of the biggest conversations that I have with clients is this confidence to go and spend your money, because so many of you don't have the confidence to spend money, even despite getting a retirement plan done. The math is all in front of you, the money is waiting for you, but you have this, habit of saving money all your life, and then finally you get to where you're about to retire and someone says go out and spend $80,000 a year. It really is uncomfortable for many people, and it takes you a little bit of time to have the confidence to do that. So the first thing I would do is to get an advisor to do a plan, walk through as many appointments as you need to show you how much money you have every single year, or at least let's say a ceiling, don't spend above this amount, and have that advisor have the patience to show you exactly how the math works. So say, okay, you show me spending $80,000 a year. First of all, where did you get that number from? And then where does the money come from to pay for that $80,000? Show me that year, what that year looks like, including doing the withdrawals. Like, treat me like I'm retired day one today. Where is that money going to come from? Out of which account? How did the tax rate get to be where it is? When do I start my CPP? Have the advisor take the time to do that exercise so you can build the confidence to actually go ahead and start spending the money you so deserve to spend. It's your time, right? Okay, we reached the end of today's video. Thanks for staying around, and it's really great to see you again. I have a question for you as always. What is the biggest retirement myth that is holding you back? Put your comments below. As always, I love reading your comments. And again, thanks for tuning in. And I look forward to seeing you again in the next video. Thanks, and be well.